Chester County. I've been a 10-year school director down there at the Unionville-Chadds Ford School District. I have a special interest in school districts being transparent with their taxpayers. And I'll talk to you about how Upper Perkiomen is being less than transparent with their financial information. I've also been an expert witness in the Lower Merion School District case, which you may have heard of. I got to testify as an expert witness in front of Judge Smythe down in Montgomery County Court. So if anyone has any questions about school district finances, I'd be happy to answer them to the best of my ability. I got involved with Upper Perkiomen when Melanie talked with me and wanted to know a little bit more about their tax situation up here in Upper Perkiomen. And I must say it's a unique way to do taxation. I'm also from a district that has residents in 2 different counties, and we do the normal, I'm going to call it the normal method of taxation, whereby when you get a millage rate increase, when somebody talks about a millage rate increase from the district, that means exactly you'll get that same tax increase in dollar value. So if you got a 2.3% millage increase, it means your tax bill is going to go up by 2.3%. In Upper Perkiomen, that's not the case. In fact, in 2012, Upper Perkiomen had a millage increase of 0. Sounded very,
Can you talk closer?
sure. It sounded very advantageous, a 0% millage increase. But when you got your tax bill, because the step ratio changed, you actually had a 7.5% tax increase. So it's very advantageous for the school district to talk about just millage rates, but what you really want to know about as concerned citizens is what happened to your tax bill. And I would hope in the future that the school district would always talk in terms of increase in the tax bill rather than millage rate increase. Because millage rate is just very misleading.
I'm sorry, sir. Can you just repeat that percentage increase and when that happened?
2012,
2012,
yes,
there was an increase in how much?
the millage rate increased by 0.
Okay.
The tax bill, your tax bill increased by 7.5%. And that happens. Last year, the millage rate increased. I believe it was 2.4%. Don't hold me to that. But I think your tax bill went up 3.5%. I remember one was 2 and the other one was 3. So you got a 0.7% increase above the millage rate because the step ratio decreased. Confusing, yes, but that's the way it goes in Upper Perkiomen.
So in this school district, the millage rate went up, didn't go up at all, it was a 0% increase.
2012,
2012, but the tax rate went up by 7.5%.
yes,
Why?
because the step ratio decreased by 7.5%. Very confusing, isn't it? So that's why I would encourage the school district in the future to always talk in terms of your tax bill increase rather than millage rate. Forget about millage rate. I mean, you don't pay your bills in mills, you pay your bills in dollars. So they should really be talking in what happens to your tax bill. Let me get back on focus here. Okay. I want to make it clear to everyone here that I don't have an opinion one way or another on the middle school project. This is my first time in Upper Perkiomen School District. I've never visited any of your schools, so I can't have an opinion on whether you should build a middle school or not. What I can do is give you an opinion on the financial information coming out of Upper Perkiomen. What I can tell you is you should not trust the information coming out of Upper Perkiomen. Let me say that again. You shouldn't trust the financial information coming out of Upper Perkiomen. And I'm going to give you some examples of why. And Melanie's also going to post a lot of detailed information on the website to back that up. Because it's a bold statement. You don't make statements like that without being able to back them up. And that information will be on the Upper Perkiomen, on the Concerned Citizens website. I'm also going to send a complimentary copy to the school board directors so they also have it. Thank you. So let me start out with the examples of why I think you're going to have problems with the information coming out of the Upper Perkiomen School District. The most recent independent audit exposed some major problems. The auditor found, I'll quote, material weaknesses defined as a combination of deficiencies in internal control such that there is a reasonable possibility that a material misstatement of the entity's financial statements will not be prevented or detected or corrected in a timely manner. So what they're telling you is you can't trust the audit statements, the financial statements that are coming out of Upper Perkiomen. This is from the independent auditor. A letter was sent to the school board and the superintendent on December 20th. I found out about it by doing a right to know request. I'm very surprised that the district hasn't made the citizens aware of it at their last meeting. I would be asking them at the next meeting, why haven't you told us about this problem with the audits?
And that was December 20th of 16?
Yes. Okay. So the reason that this is important, besides worrying about the financial statements that might be misleading, is that it has an effect on bond ratings. And the bond rating has an effect on interest rates that you'd have to pay for any bond offering, pay for the middle school. So you want to talk with your school directors about the effect of this problem audit. Okay, the second thing I want to talk about is the misleading budget statements that come out of Upper Perkiomen. I looked at the last 7 audit reports and compared the last 7 audit reports to what the district told you at budget time. Because at budget time, it's going to happen this June, you get your tax increases. And what I found out is that every one of those 7 years, the budget that was issued by the Upper Perkiomen School District was misleading. They underestimated revenues, they overestimated expenditures, they underestimated the amount of the fund balance that would be ending at the end of the year. So what I did is I compared with what they told you in June with what happened at the end of the year, and there's a significant discrepancy between the two. Now you got to remember that budgets are only estimates and they're not exact. But if the same underestimation of revenues and overestimation of expenditures occurs 7 times in a row, you can guess that it's not a random error. Someone is actually doctoring the numbers so that it paints a dire financial picture of the school district so the tax increases are easier to pass. This is the same misleading behavior that I found at the Lower Merion School District. And you may know that Lower Merion School District, by order of a judge, had their tax increase reduced. And that's on appeal right now to the appellate court in Harrisburg, and we expect a decision in a month or 2. Okay, so that's the second reason that I wouldn't trust anything coming out of Upper Perkiomen School District as far as financial information goes. The third reason is something to deal with the 8% unassigned fund balance. The unassigned fund balance is the district's piggy bank. And the state has a law in effect that says you can't raise taxes at all if your unassigned fund balance is above 8%. Now, in the last school year, the district said we're going to have an unassigned fund balance of just below that 8% limit at 7.5%. But what you look and see when you look at their audit was, it was double that number. So had they done a reasonable estimate, I think we look, okay.
Yep.
If we had done a reasonable estimate of what that unassigned fund balance had been at the time of taxation last year, the school district wouldn't have been able to raise taxes. And I believe this has occurred at least for 2 years, and I think unless they take action this year with the unassigned fund balance, they won't be able to raise taxes at all. Okay. Number 4. We've talked about this, and that is that the district loves to talk in millage rates. They really should be talking in what happens to your tax bill. So these four things so far are just the basic financial information that's coming out of Upper Perkiomen that makes me say it's very difficult to trust the financial information coming out of the district. Now let me talk about some of the information that's coming out about the building project. I listened to a community member sort of begging for estimates of what would happen to their taxes in the next few years. I believe it was a school director who said, "I'm sorry, we can't give you an estimate because there are too many unknown variables that are occurring." That's baloney. Financial forecasts are just an integral part of every school district's budgeting process. If you take a look at the manual of accounting that all school districts have to use, they talk about the importance of financial forecasting. You just have to think about it and say, if you build a middle school project, you're going to be taking out loans that are going to last for 20 to 25 years. If you're going to make that long-term impact on people's finances, you ought to at least be able to do a 5-year forecast of what's going to happen to your taxes. So that's a problem. School districts and Upper Perkiomen should be able to give you a forecast. It's not going to be entirely accurate, but at least it could be an estimate of what's going to happen to your taxes over the next few years. The second thing I would say is I'm looking at the school district's frequently asked questions on their website, and they talk about the average taxpayer will see a $329 increase in their tax bill over a 4-year period. You may have seen that number. Unfortunately, what they don't tell you is that's $329 not only for 4 years, that's $329 for an additional 2.5 decades. So the actual cost for the average taxpayer for the middle school project as now it's envisioned is over $8,000. So that's a little bit different than $329, and this is why I believe the school district has to start giving comprehensive numbers that give you a real picture of what's happening. $329 sounds reasonable. $8,000 may not sound so reasonable. Okay, and the last one I'm going to talk about is the same section of frequently asked questions where they talk about the 8.62% tax increase over 4 years. Now, that's about 2.2% per year. Doesn't sound too bad, but as Melanie's son talked about earlier, if you take an average over the last 5 years, it's going to be 3.3% just for the normal operations of the school district to pay for normal compensation increases for the employees, for the utility bills that might go up, for the heating, for anything else. So 2.2% is only to pay for the middle school. You need another average 3.3% to pay for normal operational increases. So you're talking about 5.5% over each of the 4 years. And as Melanie's son mentioned, you're going to bump up against the Act 1 cap. So if you can't get that money by, if you can't get that money because you're exceeding the Act 1 cap, how are you going to get that money? How are you going to balance your budget? There are two ways. One is to go for a referendum. I don't believe there are any referendums in Pennsylvania that have passed so far. And the only other alternative is to cut teachers and programs. Nobody wants to see that happen. So you really have to be careful, and that's why you need a 5-year forecast to figure out, are you going to be able to afford this school with the Act 1 cap that's in place? So before we get to some questions, and I know there'll be some questions, I guess the bottom line for me is you really have to question the school district about what they're telling you. The other thing is I want to mention that being a school director, the job is never very easy because you're always trading off tax dollars for education. But to get those tax dollars for education, you're taking them away from taxpayers who might need those dollars for tuition payments, college tuition payments for the kids. They might need it for retirement savings. They just might need it to be able to stay in their house to pay normal expenses. So it's always a very difficult decision to make. And although I'm criticizing the Upper Perkiomen School District directors, school directors, they have a tough job. We all deserve good financial information, because without good financial information, you can't make good decisions. Okay, that's my presentation.